It's a real treat for us today to have Drew Deskur. He is the executive director, as you can see here, from the Kopernik Observatory and Science Center. It's a special treat this weekend because this weekend happens to be the 50th anniversary of Kopernik Center. And they had a big gala last night. Drew very kindly agreed to follow up the gala by coming.
I didn't check my calendar first.
Anyway, I don't want to belabor this, but just on a more personal note, first of all, I'm sure you are all aware, welcome, recognized by sight, Teresa Deskur, Drew's daughter, who is the alto section leader in the choir. She's a fabulous addition to that. And on a very personal note, I might add that Drew is a fellow bass in the madrigal choir.
Yeah, yes, I am.
We'll be seeing each other later this afternoon. So without more ado, thank you very much, Drew, and we're looking forward to the talk.
Thanks, John. Appreciate it. And thank you for allowing me to come and talk a little bit about Kopernik and what we do up there. As John said, I go by Drew, but my name is actually Andrew Deskur, and I've been the executive director up at Kopernik since 2011, actually. And so we'll talk a little bit about Kopernik. So the Polish astronomer Mikołaj Kopernik was born in 1473 in Poland, and but as back then, all academic work was done in Latin, and so Mikołaj Kopernik turned into Nicholas Copernicus. So that's how we know, most people know his name is through Nicholas Copernicus. And what I always ask is that working all right, or?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm just trying to get the other one connected again.
Oh, okay. All right, looks like we're good. All right. So
here's some info about soap.
The Kopernik Observatory and Science Center is an education center. And so I'm gonna do a little pop quiz now. What is Copernicus famous for?
Telescope.
Nope, that was Galileo.
The sun, rotation of the Earth around the sun.
Exactly right. You're for those that didn't answer, you got a lot of people that are with you as well. Yeah, he developed what's called a heliocentric model of the solar system. Up until Copernic's time, people thought that the sun and all the planets revolved around the Earth, but sometimes those planets would look like they'd be moving backwards, and that bugged Copernik. Why would a planet be going this way and then turn around and go backwards for a while and then come back again? And so he did the math. He said, no, if you put the sun in the center, then it all makes sense. And so in 1973, there was a group of Polish immigrants and people of Polish heritage here in the southern tier that wanted to commemorate Copernik's 500th birthday. They were parishioners over at St. Stanislaus Church. One person in particular was Dr. Ed Kozlowski, who actually had a dentist's office down on Oak Street, on the other side of the, just a little bit beyond the high school. And so they got a committee together and decided to do something about that. So again, actually, here's a nice picture of Copernicus. Do I have it actually here? Oh, come on. Now it's not getting, there we go. Again, one of the things you had suggested, was it that Copernik invented the telescope. He didn't. Galileo did, and that would be 80 years later. So he did all of this basically just naked eye. It was just personal observation. And so, again, this group of Polish immigrants got together, raised money, and started to build the observatory up in Vestal. Actually, what actually got started was Richard DeLuca was the planetarium director at Roberson, and he got, before eBay even existed, he found a telescope dome and actually bought it, and it was sitting outside of the back door entry to Roberson for a time. And Dr. Kozlowski and Richard DeLuca were talking and thought, well, geez, why don't we build an observatory there at Roberson? But pretty quickly decided that the lights in downtown Binghamton were just not going to be conducive to an observatory. So we need to get out into the backwoods. And so actually one of the local people, Polish people, the Krakowski family owned some land up in Vestal and donated about 4 acres to ultimately create this facility. So in October of 1973, we had a big gala at the Fountains Pavilion down in Johnson City, and they actually had a cornerstone created for this device. And what you're seeing up here is Dr. Ed Kozlowski in the red. Richard Miller, the assemblyman, is on the right-hand side. Going to the left is Richard Kilsey, the architect. The man in the middle is Ed Neslick, the contractor. He actually built the Cooper Admin building at Binghamton University. But the gentleman in the black suit coat, anybody recognize his face? It's Commander Jim Lovell of Apollo 13. So this was 2 years after the Apollo mission, and he was here in Binghamton to sort of help us raise money. And so this cornerstone is what we have up at Kopernik. So here's that dome I was telling you about that was sitting outside of Roberson for a time, and then we actually started the construction. In fact, that dome that Richard DeLuca found is actually the dome on the left-hand side, and we still use it today. Then in June of 1974, there was a big final grand opening up at the observatory. Again, a lot of some Polish dancers were involved in that. The Polish community was very, very, very proud. My parents were actually part of that Kopernik Society that helped pull this together. And here's Ed Neslick getting an accommodation from the Polish embassy for his work and all that he donated to make that Kopernik happen. Of all the buildings and all the projects that Ed Neslick said that he ever did, the thing he was most proud of was building the Kopernik Observatory. And so back in 1974, this is what Kopernik looked like. In this lower left-hand corner, that's where the entrance is. We had just one classroom, and we had just 2 domes with two telescopes. It was then donated to the Roberson Museum and Science Center, and they ran it for about 34 years. But in 1993, they raised money, about $2 million, for a major expansion. And so they had some computer graphics to imagine what that might look like, and then finally did in fact pull that together. And it added about 4 times the floor space, number of classrooms, as well as some office space, and added an additional dome. So we have 3 scopes in permanent domes. Also then right after that, we started offering summer camps, STEM-themed summer camps. And so, and we just this year completed our 32nd summer camp season for students everywhere between rising second graders through high school. And these are week-long camps. They come up like from 9 to 3, and it's all hands-on, but it's not always about astronomy. There's I'll show you some other things that we do up there. But these camps have been just an extraordinary opportunity for kids to get real hands-on, also meet other kids with similar interests. And one parent at one point said to me, "I love bringing my daughter up here because it's okay to be a smart kid." Not always in school that is necessarily a cool thing. But in 2007, Kopernik returned to the Kopernik Society. Basically in 2006, Roberson was going through some financial challenges. They were looking at, where are they spending their money? And running the observatory was expensive. And so they basically announced that they were going to close it down or mothball it. And so the Kopernik Society said, look, if you don't want it, we'll take it back. And so now the Kopernik Society of Broome County is our legal name. We doing business as it were DBA, the Kopernik Observatory and Science Center. And our mission is to be an innovative organization that promotes interdisciplinary, lifelong learning in science, technology, engineering, and math. And I like to really focus on lifelong. Although people tend to think of Kopernik as a place for kids to come up and learn, but it's really an opportunity for all of us to continue our education. And I'll touch on that as deeper into the presentation. So, we have this what's called the Link Summer STEM Exploration. The Link is actually named after Edwin Link, the person who made Link simulators. Started here in Binghamton. But we also offer school holiday classes. But again, not everything we do is about astronomy. We also offer a program called Girl Power Science a couple times a year, and this is specifically for girls in grades 3 through 8. And so we'll be looking at a particular topic, and so the girls will learn about that particular topic. But we always have a female subject matter expert come and talk about the work she does in that field. And this one time we had an astrophysicist who worked at the Goddard Space Flight Center down in Greenbelt, Maryland, talking about the work she does using satellite data to look at carbon dioxide levels and how that affects global warming. And then because it's a video conference, our girls get to ask her questions. And one of our girls asked the question, "How did you get interested in astrophysics?" Again, these are 3rd through 8th graders, right? But I loved her answer. She says, "Well, when I was in college, I was an English major. Well, my boyfriend was a physics major, and we'd go from observatory to observatory. I eventually dumped the boyfriend, but I kept the astronomy." She now has her PhD in astrophysics and works at NASA. So you never know where a seed is going to get planted. And that's really what I think Kopernik is, especially around the young kids, is planting seeds. And as we know that from the verse from Scripture, you plant seed a bunch of different places. Some will fall on fertile ground, and others will not. But we even if we actually, I was speaking last night at our gala with Jared Cram, who was also a Kopernik camp alum, and even though he said it didn't get him into a science or engineering field, it's something he very much appreciates and makes sure that within within politics, we go for the data. So that seed did take root. We do a number of school programs on the road, both either on the road or schools will come up to Kopernik. Here they're actually doing a little bit of Lego robotics, doing sort of graphically oriented computer programming with very familiar Legos. We were very fortunate a few years ago to get a grant from the Floyd Hooker Foundation to buy a portable planetarium. And so we basically have a inflatable dome that we can then put our projector inside, and then we can bring out to schools or organizations, and basically we can project. We can put ourselves at any point on the Earth. We can actually fly to various planets or nebulas or galaxies, and all digitally through this through our dome. But as I mentioned, we have a very extensive summer camp. This actually is one of our students safely looking at the sun. So in the lower, if you follow the telescope down, there's a little white box before you see it. It takes out a 90-degree turn there. That little white box is a solar filter, and it takes about 94% of the light away, making it safe for students to view. But what we always make sure that I always ask when I'm doing one of these tours and just before they go into the scope, I'll say, do any of you have telescopes or binoculars at home? And some of them will do. And I say, well, what happened if you were to take those binoculars or a scope and look at the sun? And some people will say, they know that they'll hurt their eyes, they'll go blind. And I say, well, yeah, blind's forever. And so you can never do that at home. But with our scope here, we can safely look at the sun. Other things we do in our summer camp is we've done a camp where we do we call it Return to the Edge of Space, and it's they're putting a payload together that then sits on a a weather balloon. I'm sorry, the gala took a lot out of me last night, so I apologize. Anyway, so we have them launch a weather balloon that starts out at about, we fill up with helium. It's probably about 5 foot in diameter. On this payload is 3 cameras. We also have some tracking information, some data collecting information, and then we launch it, and it will get up to over 100,000 feet, almost 20 miles up into the sky. This is actually a picture from one of our missions, and you can see the curvature of the Earth. Right up, yeah, right from Kopernik, yeah. And then that nice little blue band just above the horizon, that's our atmosphere, and you can see everything above that is black. That's space. Now we have cameras that look up at the balloon, and so again, it started out at about 5 feet in diameter on the ground, but just before it bursts, it's about 27 feet in diameter, about almost the size of this room. But then, so then 40 milliseconds later, you start to see the balloon burst. Another 40 milliseconds later, yeah, this is my favorite picture because it still has that globe view to it, but it's clearly all shredded. And
instruments, parachute.
well, yeah, so there is a parachute. So basically, if we start out with the balloon, then we call it a flight line, and so then there's a rope, a paracord that then has a parachute, and then below that is a radar reflector, about a foot diameter, which basically is a sort of metallically coated cardboard, so that planes can sort of see that in their radar. And then we have another long line, then our payload. So actually, that gold disc in there that's the radar reflector. And you see, I just want to make sure that I've got my sound turned on. I don't know that I did that in our. So give me a second here. More. I should be able to share computer sound. That's what I want. Yes. There we go. All right. So let's go here, and I'll show you a couple more images. Yeah, that's as it's rapidly deassembling. So this is in our. Here you can see it's a nice smooth ride, at least for now, and it'll change pretty quickly. So we launch it to where. And that cord is actually a radio antenna. That's a ham radio antenna that we have a tracker on that. I'm just going to move along because in case anybody's had a snack, we want you to keep your snack. So we actually have 2 tracking devices on board. One is called it's a ham radio packet beacon that basically it's got a little GPS receiver on board, and the radio beacon then listens to the GPS receiver, and once a minute will send out a packet of information indicating its longitude, latitude, and altitude. And then there are a number of ham radio stations, throughout the world actually, that have the capability of picking up those beacons, and then they publish it on a website. So we are actually tracking it in real time, and we will once we launch it, we will send a tracking team out to go and collect the balloon and the payload. And
does it sometimes go?
so again, because we only, it's only a 2 hour rise time. It doesn't go all that far. The first time that I did one of these camps about 6 years ago, it ended up down in Tunkhannock, Pennsylvania. The next time it ended up down near Port Jervis, near New York City. Then ended up in Pharsalia, New York. We ended up in Delhi. Then another time we were in a patch of woods near Gary's You Pull It down in Kirkwood. And let's see, where did the other two go? Then the next time was a little west of Sydney. And then this past time we were down near down in Pennsylvania, sort of near Tunkhannock. And with that one, it was interesting. It was actually out in a field, very fortunately. Yeah. So two times we actually had to take trees down because they typically will land. They look for the trees, the balloons for some reason. I don't know why. And so we've actually had to have trees cut down in order to retrieve the payload. But this last time, when the balloon burst, it managed to disconnect the parachute from the rest of the flight line. And so it made a basically free fall. And astonishingly, all the cameras continued to work. The styrofoam package was completely, busted up, but all the cameras were working, and we've actually got video of the kids walking up to the camera. So one of the things we also do whenever people come up to Copernicus, we talk about the local astronauts. There are actually 4 astronauts that grew up here in the Southern Tier. This is Eileen Collins, who grew up in Elmira. Dan Bursch grew up right in Vestal. The thing about Dan Bursch is he applied 4 times to be an astronaut. He was turned down 3 times, but the 4th time he was finally accepted, and he actually flew 4 times. So we tell that to the kids, that just because the first answer is no, don't necessarily give up. And then this is Doug Wheelock. Doug Wheelock grew up in Windsor. He's actually on a ham radio station that we have that's on the International Space Station, and actually we'll go back to this one here in a second. And then the 4th astronaut that's from this area is Doug Hurley. Doug Hurley grew up in Appalachian. He's an Owego Appalachian grad. He was the pilot of the last space shuttle mission back in 2010, and was the commander of the SpaceX Crew Dragon, Demo 2. So he and Bob Behnken were the first astronauts to fly on a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket. And so I think at this point, Doug Wheelock is the only astronaut who's still an active astronaut. The other 3 have retired. So hold on, let me see if I can get to this here. Yeah. So one of our summer camps is called Welcome Aboard the International Space Station. And so these are rising 4th and 5th grade students. And so they get to learn about what kind of training astronauts go through, what kind of work they do on the ISS. I then talk about satellite orbits and radio communication. And I always ask the kids, who of you have ever talked on a radio of any sort that you can think of? Any kind of radio. Usually I get like nobody, or well, my uncle's got some walkie-talkies. And then I go and I pull out my phone. I say, okay, who have you talked on one of these things? Of course, everybody has talked on a cell phone. And so, well, what's inside? There's a radio in here, right? It's not a magic brick. And so, and that's again part of what I think Copernicus' job is, to help people understand, how do things work? Not only technology, but biology, chemistry. How does the world work? How does the universe work? But anyway, we've had an opportunity now 7 times to have our students talk to an astronaut on the International Space Station, using the ham radio station we have at Kopernik, talking to the ham radio station that is on the ISS. So because the ISS is above the ionosphere, we can only talk to it on a frequency that's high enough to punch through the ionosphere, which then means that we only have about at most 11 minutes from horizon to horizon. Because once it goes below the horizon, the signal is just going out into space and we've lost the ISS. So we always do a rehearsal with the kids. So we set all the equipment up, and I'm a ham radio operator. I've been actually a ham for over 55 years. And so I take my little ham radio walkie-talkie that's on the right same frequency as the astronauts would have been on. And I go into another room and I provide feedback. So as the kids are asking their questions, I'll say, okay, you're talking a little too softly, or you're mumbling, or whatever, so that the astronaut, has a good chance of hearing what they're saying. Have a better chance of hearing it. Now, every kid has a 3x5 card with their question on it. And so there's one student, this is all done in the rehearsal. His question was, do you have children, and how do you communicate with them while you're on the ISS? But what I heard over my radio is, how do you have children? So my eyes just sort of opened up, and I said, I don't think he's prepared to answer that particular question, but I'm glad this actually happened, because it's a great example for all of us that unless you're really comfortable being up in front of a bunch of people talking, it's sometimes good to practice what you're going to say. So let's try that again. So, of course, it was fine. And then that evening, I'm on the phone with my NASA contact. I said, okay, all the equipment's set up. We rehearsed the kids, and then I told them that story. There was a long pause, and he goes, "Oh, that would have been a first." He said they get about 200 to 300 standard questions. Where do you sleep? Have you seen a UFO? But how do you have children? To my knowledge, still has not been asked. But then, a couple years ago, one of our students asked, "What happens when you sneeze during a spacewalk?" That's an interesting physics kind of thing going on there. And the astronaut said, "Actually, that's happened twice to me." I said, "Usually when you feel the sneeze coming on, you're in your spacesuit outside of the ISS. You feel the sneeze coming on, you sort of bend your head down because there's a little bit of a gap, in around your face shield, and you sneeze down into your chest. But one time, he said, the sneeze completely caught me by surprise. All the boogers were on the face shield, and I'm thinking to myself, that's got to be the first time boogers have been part of an answer for one of these questions." So, and this last back in June, actually end of July, we had one of these camps, and one of our students, a 10-year-old, his name is Jackson Peck, got his ham radio license, and so he was the control operator. You have to have a licensed ham radio operator that actually hits the transmit button legally and so our kid Jackson was the one that was talking to and actually he had just gotten his ham radio license a week before. So this talking to the astronaut was technically his first real ham radio contact. Everything else is sort of going to be, downhill from there, I guess. But anyway, so let me show you an example of this. This is, I was talking to Colonel Doug Wheelock. Oh, come on, back here. Let's try that again. NA1SS, Kilo 2 Zulu, Romeo Oscar. Are you ready? So NA1SS is the ham radio call sign of the ISS. NA1SS, Kilo 2 Zulu, Romeo Oscar. Do you copy? I was using phonetics. Getting a little nervous because hearing anything. NA1SS, Kilo 2 Zulu, Romeo Oscar. Do you copy, Colonel Wheelock?
Kilo 2 Zulu, Romeo Oscar. We've got you loud clear. Welcome aboard the International Space Station. November Alpha 1 Sierra Sierra.
This is Brendan. How well are plants growing on the space station? Over.
Hi, Brendan. That's a great question. The plants actually grow very well, but of course they need
I'm going to move forward here a little bit.
My launch day. But anyway, the way that we bathe actually is kind of like you take a wet washcloth and just kind of wipe your body off. We have rinseless shampoo and rinseless soap that we can use to clean our bodies and stuff. So it's not as good as taking a long hot shower, but it works while you're in space. Over.
This is Matthew Colosi. What is the most significant discovery you've made since arriving on the ISS? Over.
Matthew, are you any relation to the Colosis that lived 2 houses away from me when I was a kid?
Yes, I'm Alan's son.
Great question.
Okay, so his dad was Doug Wheelock's neighbor. So we're talking about a small world. We do other programs as well. We have overnights for scout programs offering various badges. We do a rocket fest where families will build those Estes rockets, and we used to actually build them up there, and then when COVID hit, we stopped doing that, and then we actually said, well, hey, why don't we just have the families build them at home and bring them up? And so, which has been great because when we would build them up during the day, they'd build the rockets and then they would want to go out and spray paint them. And then they hand us this wet rocket to then put the engine in. And so now they do all that decorating at home. We come up, we check out the rocket, put the engine in, and then they get to launch it. And this past June, we launched about 120 rockets up at Kopernik.
How many did you retrieve?
A good portion of them. How many have we retrieved? Yeah, we again, the wind does take it some time, and so we do try to sort of aim we sort of try to play the wind, if you will, but sometimes also people don't put a large enough, we call it's called a weep hole in the parachute, and if you don't put enough hole in that parachute, it just sits there and just slowly floats into Pennsylvania. So
Use for fuel when you're for the rocket.
for those, they're the solid engines that Estes makes. It's and they have different values.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, so there's a smaller igniter that so we actually have the kids actually hit the button that actually sends it up. We always take a picture of them holding their rocket before before they launch it, and we give them a little certificate to say that they successfully built and launched a rocket. We don't say recovered because we know for sure that's going to happen. We also have a very large festival called Astrofest, which is an astronomy festival, which actually will be next Friday and Saturday. And so you're certainly welcome to come up for that as well. Earlier on, I talked about how we really started promoting lifelong learning, and what we do in that to aid that is our Friday night programs. Every Friday night from March to mid-December, we'll have a public program of some sort. We'll have somebody come up and talk about some aspect of science or technology or engineering. But it's, again, not always about astronomy. We've had somebody talk about the physics of music. Actually, it was Jeff Barker from the geology department, who's a French horn player. And why does a violin, an oboe, and a trumpet all sound different playing the same note? So talked about the physics behind that. We've coming up in a couple of weeks, we'll have somebody from the National Weather Service talking about the 32 tornadoes that were in New York State this year, and what's causing that. Why is there a rise in that? I've done a talk about ham radio. We've had somebody talk about a straw bale construction of homes. So it's not always about astronomy, and it's just an opportunity to learn more about how the world works. We will also be open for astronomical events if there's meteor showers, comets, eclipses. We'll be there. We'll be open for that as well. So part of our Friday night program is we ended up in 2020. We had to stop doing our public programs because of COVID. We couldn't put people in a room together. So we said, okay, fine. We'll just sort of hold off for a couple of weeks until this COVID thing blows over, and that didn't exactly play out that we had planned. So by May, we said, look, I've got all these speakers lined up. Why don't we get them to Zoom into us, and then we can put it out on our YouTube channel? So that's what we've been doing since May of 2020. We now have over 13,000 subscribers on our YouTube channel. And if you go there, you can actually, again, you can watch us live. So if you can't get up on a Friday night, you can actually just go to YouTube and watch us. But literally, there are people from around the world. There's a woman in Adelaide, Australia, for her, it's Saturday morning, but she is eating breakfast and watching our live stream. But also, all of our live streams are recorded, and you can actually go to our web, the YouTube site, and you can watch the last 4 years worth of live streams. Again, I mentioned if there's a comet of note, this comet Hyakutake, we'll be up there again. The difference between a meteor and a comet. A meteor is basically it's a space rock that's basically floating through, like an asteroid that's floating through space, or something solid floating through space. When it starts to enter the Earth's atmosphere, then it becomes a meteor. But if it survives that and lands on the ground, that's a meteorite. A comet is really more of a dirty snowball. Mostly it's ice, but it's got other other gases, other elements in there, and the tail is really basically those elements being sort of sublimating off and making it in just leaving this long tail. And the thing about comets is they're there for you might see them for a week or even a month, depending on its orientation. This is actually Comet Neowise, which happened back in, I think, 2020. I actually took this picture with my cell phone up at Kopernik. There's just a little 10-second exposure. So we'll be open for again things like the meteor showers, eclipses. In fact, on our live stream, we did a lunar eclipse back in 2022. And at one point, we had over 25,000 people watching our live stream. And one of our we call her our live stream astronomer is Jenny Cardy, and does a lot of interaction, talking with people. And people actually said in the chat, we left NASA's live stream because we like yours better. So can't beat that. So this was the solar eclipse back in 2017. We had about 1,500 people up there, and we unfortunately we were ready for the big one in April, but unfortunately we were all clouded over. We had about 250 people out there for that. But we have a telescope called a heliostat that actually projects in our room, and from one side of the sun to the other is actually 9 feet across. And you can see this is from the 2017 eclipse, and you can see how the moon is really biting in. We've offered birthday parties, private functions that people we've done. Birthday parties. We've done weddings. We've done memorial services up there. But one of the things we're now focusing on for schools is there's now what's called the Next Generation Science Standard. So basically it's sort of the Common Core, but for science and engineering. And so we are adapting all of our programs so that they fit directly into that curriculum. Because so now, from kindergarten through at least 8th grade, that curriculum is very well defined. And especially in elementary schools, a lot of those elementary school teachers are not subject matter experts. And so having our educators sort of help with that has been great. People ask, how do you make money? We are a nonprofit. We do offer a membership. We belong to what's called the Association of Science and Technology Centers. And it's a consortium of over 380 other science centers that share memberships. So you buy a Kopernik membership, you can get into Robeson, you can get into the Museum of Science and Technology up in Syracuse, the Franklin Institute in Philly, the Intrepid down in New York City, all for free. And in fact, you go to something like the Intrepid or the Franklin Institute, for like 2 adults getting in, it's actually more expensive than our 1-year membership. So it's a pretty good deal. Back in 2016, we partnered with the Junior League of Binghamton to build a STEM-themed playground. Before the playground was in place, we basically had a field that people might throw a frisbee around, but we actually had hold on here. We actually had a bit of a natural spring that came up, and actually around those orange cones in there was actually a bit of a swamp. And even though you put the orange cones and say, don't go in there, it's all wet, that's where they go, right? So we ended up finally, building a playground, and we focus on what aspect of science or technology or engineering are part of even regular playground. You could talk about there's a seesaw, and the physics behind of a lever. We have a geodesic dome, how architects use it. Every one of those pieces of playground equipment has a little sign down there that talks about what aspect of science or engineering are involved in that. But there's also a QR code that you can snap your phone. It takes you to our website, and you learn more about that. We even have one of those little libraries, so that you take a little break, you can come and do some reading, and it gets used. And this is a picture at night. People come up, even who lived here forever, and they'll come up and like, where did all these stars come from? You got to get away from the city lights. There's no lights up at Kopernik, and most of what we look at tends to be toward the south, which is basically we're about 150 yards from Pennsylvania, so it's all just northeast Pennsylvania. So it's just outstanding. You can actually see a bit of the Milky Way. That little cloudiness is actually the Milky Way. So we actually got this email from a mom saying, "Thanks for inspiring me. For my little one today," she said, "when I want to get bigger, I want to fly real fast in a rocket ship to the stars." So is that planting of the seed, and let's see where it takes us. So now that we're sort of starting our next 50 years, or starting to look at what Kopernik for the next 50 years might look like, we're now beginning to put together a campaign to not only expand the facility, but expand our bench of educators, and with that, and expand our outreach. We just recently received a $200,000 grant from a local foundation to get a STEM van, and with that, an additional planetarium, some equipment to do VR, a classroom VR headset kind of thing, where we can take into middle school and high school, and provide programs in a VR space. At times we are capacity constrained, so we're actually looking to expand the facility itself. As John had mentioned, this is the beginning of Space Week. Every year, starting on October 4th, they do a Space Week, and this year they're sort of focusing on taking care of the Earth, and how can space exploration help us do that. Actually, our Friday night program just 2 nights ago was in fact about Space Week, and the reason they choose October 4 is October 4th was the date in 1957 that the Russians sent up Sputnik, and so if you recall, Sputnik was the first artificial satellite around the Earth. The moon is technically the first satellite, but it's not artificial. But on Sputnik, there was actually 2 radio transmitters that were sending down, just sort of, like beep tones, and along with the scientists that had equipment to pick it up, ham radio operators were able to do that. And my dad was a ham radio operator. Actually, his call sign is K2ZRO, which is the one we now use at Kopernik. And my dad listened to Kopernik, and so he's actually sent a note to the Russian Space Agency that on this date, I heard the Sputnik sound on this frequency, and so when hams have a communication with each other, they will often send what's called a QSL card. QSL is sort of ham speak for confirmation, and so this is from the Russian Space Agency that my dad received. On the back, there's something in Russian, and I got sort of a loose translation of what it is. It says, "To KJ Deskur, the observer of the world's first Soviet Earth satellite, we thank you for sending your information. Your observations have a scientific value and will help us in preparation of material connected with the program of International Geophysical Year. So, anyway, so if you're interested, I can, we can see that. I apologize for those on the live stream that are not seeing this. But even though we look at space exploration as like looking at the moon, looking at Mars, a lot of what like NASA and other space agencies put up are equipment to help us understand what's going on here on Earth, and it helps us track what's going on, and hopefully we inform people and inform politicians will act appropriately to try to mitigate what we are, this climate change that we're causing. So at this point, I don't know if there's any questions either here locally, or I don't know what timing wise. Am I?
We're fine, and if people have to leave, that's fine, but
Yeah.
we started late, so.
Yep.
I have a question. I was at the dedication, the original dedication.
Oh, wow. In 73.
Yes.
Okay.
And I remember they were making a movie of it, and it's supposed to be shipped to Poland. But I don't know if you know anything more about it.
I may have heard something to that effect.
Yeah.
Now, there is actually a Kopernik Science Center in Warsaw.
Mm.
And the reason I know this is that we are constantly getting email in Polish coming to Kopernik. So in the internet there, so our internet facility is our website is kopernik.org. Well, over in Poland, the Kopernik Science Center is kopernik.org.pl. Well, if you forget to put the .pl in, comes out, it goes info@kopernik.org, comes to us. And for a number of years, we actually, one of my office assistants was a Polish immigrant. And so she would sit there and just respond. She'd flip into the Polish key set on a keyboard and respond. I don't know whether, I don't think that facility had it, but I'll have to ask, because there are still some of our founders around. Last night, there were at least 2 or 3 of the original founders. The Kozlowski, Val Kozlowski was there, Tom Krakowski, Lucia Neslik is the wife of Ed Neslik. So I will ask if they have some connections. I would love to see that. I mean, most of the pictures we have are sort of old and faded a bit. Actually, you just reminded me. I showed you that picture with the cornerstone with Jim Lovell.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we were told that there was a time capsule that was put into the building back in 1973 for that, or 74, and so last fall during our previous Astrofest, I said, well, why don't we go and see if there actually is a time capsule there, as we're preparing for the 50th anniversary. And so we chipped away the sort of the lighter concrete that was there. At our Astrofest, we pulled the stone right out, and sure enough, there's a plastic bag and a big metal box in there.
Mm.
So, and we were live streaming. We had a room full of people, and so this is great. And so I take the box out of the plastic bag. I look at it. It's got a lock on it. I'm looking around, no key. So I said, wait a minute. So I quickly ran into the storeroom, and I got a screwdriver and popped it open. And so there were a number of things. There was a program from the Fountains Pavilion gala that they had pictures taken at that opening. There's a news article on Rich DeLuca that was there. There's some soil from Poland as well. So actually last night at our gala, we had the contents from the time capsule laid out, and then we had little yellow sticky notes to say what should we put in, because in February of next year we will reinter the time capsule for 2074, we were asking people, what should we put in, add in, for that. So I haven't seen those sticky notes. Again, I'm looking forward to doing that. So, yeah, there are still a few people around, and but I'm going to have to ask about that video, about that movie. I've been to have that, which is actually sort of another thing when you think about. Okay, if you're going to put things in a time capsule, what are you going to put in there? Am I going to put a DVD player in there to play the DVD, or we've gone from USB to USB-C to in 50 years, what?
Paper.
Right.
Put in an iPhone.
Yeah. Well, again, we'll put in some eclipse glasses, and yeah. So I don't. If people are on the Zoom, are there any questions there?
Is there another question back?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well,
Yeah.
I was just curious about the weather, when you're doing the observation with the telescopes.
Mhm.
Imagine you have to be very selective scheduling. You can't just
Yeah.
set something for next week. It may not work.
Yeah. That's it.
How you handle that advantage.
We tap dance a lot. We give tours of, yeah. So every Friday night we are open on Friday nights. That's when we're open to the public. If it's clear out, we invite people to go look through the scopes. If it's not clear out, when people come for the program, we'll give them a tour of the scopes, but we'll then say, all right, here's a card and complimentary, come on back. So like with the solar eclipse that happened in April, it was just all clouds here. So yeah, we are very much at the mercy. There's no, when you're doing optical observations, clouds, there's no cloud filter. If you're doing radio telescope, that's different, but it's not the same thing as looking through an eyepiece. But that's one of the things I love about this job is that, again, when people come out and we'll bring some scopes out, even out into the yard, and we'll be looking at say Saturn or something, and so people will struggle to look into the eyepiece, and they're like, oh, I see it. There's this immediate, oh my God, this is those rings are real, kind of thing. So it's that kind of excitement. We'll also, we'll watch the ISS fly by. The ISS flies by 7 or 8 times a day, and sometimes when it's flying by at night, you get to see it. Has anybody actually seen it?
Yeah.
So what it is basically it's just a little light that's moving across the sky very slowly. There's no blinking lights on it. All right. What you're seeing is the light reflected off the solar panels. So sometimes actually you'll be looking at the ISS, and all of a sudden it just turns off. What's happening there is you're going into Earth eclipse. It's the ISS traveling at 17,500 miles an hour. Actually, it takes 90 minutes for it to do a complete orbit. So it spends 45 minutes in sunlight, 45 minutes behind, the Earth, behind the Earth, if you will. And we'll see other satellites. Sometimes you can see what they call the Starlink trains. When those Starlink satellites are launched, when they're first launched, there might be 30 or 40 of them. And for the first week, 10 days or so, if you see them at night, there's just these 30 or 40 lights that are just following each other across the sky. It's very, it's like, oh my God, is it the aliens are attaching it? No, it's just Starlink. But then over time, they start separating more and more, and get to the point where they just an individual satellite will fly by. Any other questions here? Yeah.
Are there any research projects that go on either with advanced students or others using the scopes that you have?
Not so much with our scopes. I do work with BU computer students, and so they've been working with us now for years, and they continue to do that. Right now, I've got them working on we have 2 different little computer systems called Raspberry Pi. And the Raspberry Pis are connected. We have it looks like a USB jump drive, but it's actually what's called a software-defined receiver that one side is a USB port, the other side that plugs into the Raspberry Pi, which is a small little $30 computer that runs under sort of a Unix, a Linux operating system. The other side of that software-defined receiver goes up to an antenna, and we are capturing images from the NOAA weather satellites that come down and post them up on our website. We're also doing now, we've got another Raspberry Pi and a dish that's looking at the GOES weather satellite. The GOES satellite are the geostationary satellites that just look at the entire disk. And so you get to see weather from all the way from Greenland down to the bottom of South America. You can see hurricanes and all of that. And so we're now working on getting that those systems so that we can actually capture those images and actually create like a GIF file that we can put on our website or locally at our in our lobby, where you can actually see 24 hours of the weather, and then you see the Earth termination, then you see the city lights pop up, and so we're working with those students. So because we are really independent, we're not part of a university research. We don't really have any active research per se. However, there have been times when we've had many of our photographs in textbooks. Nature magazine a few years ago, astronomers from the Harvard Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics asked us for one of our supernova pictures that we took a few years ago using our equipment. So we've got these 3 domes here that you're seeing, 2 of which we actually observe through. One we actually use exclusively for imaging. It's a 20-inch reflecting telescope, and we have basically a really sensitive camera system on board that allows us to take just extraordinary pictures. But if we were to look at an object through that 20-inch scope versus our 14-inch scope, our eyes wouldn't really see the difference. But for the camera, it makes a difference. So that's why we keep that on there. And also this way we aren't moving the equipment, and we could just walk in, open up the dome, start shooting.
It's great.
So.
Well, listen, thank you very much.
Oh, so awesome. Appreciate it. Any other questions from the live stream or no? We're good? All right. Well, thank you.
Hey, just a quick one. With the radio telescope, do you get imagery?
There is imagery, but
to move with a radio telescope?
right. You would get a form of imagery, but it's basically they're converting the numbers into those images.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's not the kind of thing that you feel like.
Not an optical.
Right. No, not at all. No. But it does in fact go through the clouds. So that's the upside. But oh, you're welcome. Like those pictures of the black hole.
Yeah.
That was all done through radio astronomy.
Oh, okay.
That first image that you saw of the black hole from a couple of years ago, that was purely the numbers being cranked into the physical image. So.